مرحبا أعزائنا المشاهدين، بيتجدد لقائنا اليوم في برنامجنا الأسبوعي بريطانيا اليوم مع حلقة جديدة وضيف جديد. ضيفنا لحلقة اليوم هو إراكلي مينابدي، وهو المرشح للإنتخابات العامة لعام 2024، وهو يقف لمنطقتين كوينز بارك وميدافيل مع الوركرز بارتي بزعامة جورج جالوي. How are you, Mr. Erakley?
I'm very well. Thank you for inviting me to your show.
Thank you very much for being with us today. Can you please start with introducing yourself to our audience?
My name is Irakli Meinabdi. I am the parliamentary candidate for Queen's Park, Maida, a new constituency in Westminster, used to be a part of Brent and Westminster North. I'm running under the Workers' Party, George Galloway's party, and we hope to come and make some serious changes in our government.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and what drives you in life, please?
Sure. By background, I am what you would call a foreign-born citizen. I was nationalized in the UK. I was born in Georgia, former Soviet Union. Traveled around the world, studied where I could. I don't come from a particularly fascinating background, just a small neighborhood in Tbilisi in Georgia. I later moved and studied in the UK, worked in a couple of different countries. By background, I worked in financial services, and currently I am a co-CEO of a company which is providing technology solutions in the real estate in the UK. So I'm basically someone that has been educated and born in Soviet Union. I've seen how the world works.
Yeah.
I also have a business background, and now I've made London my home, and I want to change things.
Nice. What motivates you to stand as a candidate for Queen's Park and Meadowvale, especially for this election?
Well, I'm a father of two daughters, and every time I look at them in the eyes, I see what is going on in Gaza, and it is completely unacceptable for me to do nothing. And I think the most important thing I could do after I was asked to run for the Workers' Party is to try to make that change in the parliament and make the voice of change, the voice of Gaza, the voice of all of those innocent people being killed, heard in the parliament, and do my best to stop it on a national level.
Yeah. We said before that George Galloway, who's leading the Workers' Party, is not very well known now, his connection to the Workers' Party. So we wanted to make this point clear today. Also, can you tell us a little bit more about this and tell us why did you choose the Workers' Party especially?
Well, I had looked at which political organizations were the closest allied with the cause of Gaza.
Yeah.
And were oldest fighters for the both Palestinian people as well as anti-war campaigning. George Galloway came up on top, but also the economic policies of Workers' Party are much more refined than any other alternative, especially on the left, that does stand for Gaza. So it is that breadth of ideas, it is the thought through concepts, and it is the commitment of a long time against war and how we would want to spend that money when we repatriated that resonated the most. But also it's amazing people that I am running in neighboring constituencies with unbelievable people that I met on this campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Hawes for Westminster, James running neighboring Brent. So it is an unbelievable group of people with a very great set of ideas in terms of impact and change that we want to implement.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit more about you. Basically, I got an idea that you're standing with Gaza, obviously, but tell me a little bit more about your current view on Palestine and Gaza situation.
Well, I think it is a great misjudgment by everyone in the political parties that have refused to call a genocide a genocide. And I think it is exactly the same thing. It is much worse, in fact, I would say, than what happened in Iraq when they went into Iraq in another labor-driven war that cost tens of billions of dollars to the taxpayers of this country that later turned out to be on false grounds. And so just like apologies, just like the inquiries, just like the apartheid that happened in South Africa, it will be the same with Gaza. Palestine will be free, and these people will be held to account for standing on the wrong side of history. So it is not a one event issue. It is an issue that has been there for about 7 decades now, and it is and I've witnessed as a child, I've lived through 2 civil wars. I know what it is. And I understand completely what occupational resistance and the pressures and what these people are fighting for. So we have to support them just like as human beings would support others in need. And we have to stand up and we have to make our voice count in the parliament, because right now, vast majority of the people in this country are against the genocide in Gaza, but none of the major parties are speaking about it. And in fact, we have a new major party coming to power that is saying that it's okay for them to withhold water and electricity from children there, children that probably need it the most on planet Earth. So it is an unbelievable divide, and it is playing out in our streets in London, okay? And people are angry about it, and I think they need that voice that they can get behind and say, okay, even if I can make one vote, it goes such far difference. It will take us to the parliament where we could put down bills every day if we need to stop this.
True. Tell me, so in a case that you won the election, how would you address this in the parliament? I mean, just the changes.
If we win the elections, we become a professional party. We become a serious political organization with multiple councillors and multiple parliamentary representatives. That means that we have funding like a proper party, so we can build on our success and incorporate new generations into the following elections and actually turn this into a proper movement. Okay. Also, what it does is it gives us the ability to put down bills, right? So we will not just be simple, quiet party in the background that can vote on things that other people present, but we can actually initiate things. And just that alone is the most important reason why we should be there, because you need that voice of sanity. You need that voice of Jeremy Corbyn, George Galloway. You need those voices, and you need more of those voices, but you need them under one roof, not as independents, but actually under one party that will maintain the momentum and continue the growth. So that is what we plan to do. We plan to call out, have another voice, be able to influence legislation, and really, really push for end of funding of foreign wars for foreign countries, and push some very ambitious ideas for our own country here, which is free education, tuition fees, maintaining NHS as a public entity. We don't want dual, triple class citizens that some of whom cannot afford the NHS. Labour wants to privatize the NHS in a creeping manner, the same thing as the water. And we need to put an end to it, because in our constituencies in Westminster, especially in Brent, child poverty rates are some of the highest in this country. We have much more serious problems that we need, and we need to use that money for other things.
So just going back to the point of Muslims, how Muslims and Arabic, how do you think, how important do you think their voice in these elections today?
I think it's very important. I think it has never been, in fact, as important as it is today, okay? Because as the representation grows every year, every election campaign, the voice grows. However, the voice needs to be united. The voice needs to stand together. And that voice needs to be channeled under a party. And I actually think that, you know, you don't have to be Muslim to be against what's going on in Gaza, but specifically for the Muslim community, especially those people that feel that they're not going to vote because they don't feel much is going to change. This is their opportunity now to vote for a new party, not for the old parties that will not change, not for the warmonger parties, not for the kleptocrat parties that are just stealing everyone's money. No, this is an opportunity to vote to a dedicated party focused on one mission, right? To stop the genocide and to rebuilding our country. And this is their opportunity to unite and make change, because the new government coming, be careful, it's not going to be worse.
Yeah, you're right. In terms of Islamophobia, you know, many Muslims, especially after what happened since 7th of October, they are really concerned. They've been facing racism, and they're really worried about what's going on in terms of Islamophobia. How would you address this issue once or if you get elected?
I think we need to work together. I think we need to put together groups. Okay, we need to be organized. The most important thing about issues such as Islamophobia is being organized. Organized in the way that the votes are handled, organized in the way that organizations and legal companies and funds and donors can work together to fight legal battles. Okay, it shouldn't be. We shouldn't have different class of discrimination between different people. Okay, but we need to level up, because there's enough of a community here to hold any Islamophobic comments or acts, especially acts by political parties, that need to be held to the account through legal court processes. And that needs organization, that needs union, that needs money. And it just shows that it is possible, because you see it on the other side of the spectrum. And we just need to make sure that, you know, use the amount of people that this country has to fight to defend its rights, you know?
In terms of, you mentioned the infrastructure, you mentioned the NHS and education. You said that you obviously not with the idea of privatization, the NHS, but we know that the NHS now going in a really bad direction in terms of its services. How would you improve this service without the idea of privatization?
So there are multiple schools. NHS is a very complex organization, and NHS England especially. So there's not one magic silver bullet that solves everything. However, a lot of studies have shown that actually more funding to the NHS, ultimately in public hands, improves outcomes, okay? Because what happens in the privatized environment is that ultimately the private companies will end up buying the most attractive assets of the NHS and leave the least attractive alone. And that will always be with the state. And that cost will continue to go up, because nobody is going to go to a remote place and help people that have no money to pay for it, right? So ultimately, there are mixed models. There's mixed models in Scandinavia where the state still owns and operates, but it does have some providers for medicine, pharmaceuticals, etc. Those things should remain. However, at the core of it, we need to be able to pay our nurses better wages that they stay. We need to make sure we don't depend on foreign imports for GPs. We need to make sure that we have the ability to help people be born and actually be treated in cities of this country without the need and paying enormous amounts of money without significant accountability in the private space. You don't want the NHS to become like the water utilities, where basically people start being left behind, but some guys somewhere else make a lot of money until they come back and ask the state the same money plus more that they could have been spending on their own.
I trust your financial professional background can help you address the economy in a nice way there. Can you tell me, how would you use your professional background in finance to help your community?
Yes. So first of all, one of the most important issues that we're facing in Queen's Park, Middlevale, is housing. Okay.
Yeah.
the amount of social housing, the quality of that housing, the prices, the rental prices, the prices of the underlying assets, and so on. None of the parties actually have any strategy that is any different to one another, okay? It's the same old story that they're trying to do. They still want to get developers in the private sector to build these properties, which they won't because they're too expensive for the ordinary people here. So we need to break this model, and we need to be able to work on the supply, okay? And that means state-sponsored supply of social housing, a national program, just like it was implemented after the reconstruction of World War II, where we can really deliver 300-400 and have much more ambitious targets, 400,000 plus new homes a year. And that needs to be built in a way that is community-led and community involved. And it's possible. Those models exist. We know where we have the land on the council side. We know where we can rebuild the existing stock, increase it, improve it. But the important thing is to make sure that we're not forcing our communities and their families apart through this program. Right now, the way the housing is being built is most people can't afford it. Most people leave. If they sell their own property during the redevelopment, they can't afford to stay in that area and be in that same building. So we need to actually work for the community here first. And then there's more than one model to incentivize the private sector, as well as to get the public sector going again. And there's plenty of money in the war chest if we stop funding these crazy wars.
You're right. So how has your leadership in some of UK largest technology companies influenced you or influence your approach in empowering small and medium-sized businesses?
Well, I think we're all moving into, let's call it entrepreneurial models, right? People are working from home more. People are working with their own startups more. Everyone has a limited liability company idea that they want to create. And what we need to do is just basically empower that through technology. And that has been the theme for the last 10 years. You can launch a company in 5 minutes now. You can manage the accounts in 5 minutes now. And ultimately, what we need to do is empower that on a local community-led level. So every time, for example, there's a new redevelopment or development or regeneration, we need to make sure that it really focuses on bringing the entrepreneurial qualities, shared office space, working from office space, ability for companies to be operating it, advice, counseling, support. We need to have hubs that promote entrepreneurship locally, not spending money to some company completely on a different continent where you can do this entirely in your community. And technology is the solution. That technology exists, and we need to be working together to deploy it.
To end this interview today, what would you tell Arabic and Muslim community audience through our TV today to encourage them to vote for you?
I would say that it is a once in a lifetime, once in a generational opportunity right now to impact change. Okay, Gaza opened the eyes of many people, okay, but the responsibility to take the first step and vote for change and lead that direction is from the audience of this TV show. And we will do our best to make sure that we provide that platform where it is very clear that the Workers' Party of George Galloway is standing in all of the elections in the London boroughs, London constituencies. And you find us, you understand what we stand for, and you come out to vote for us. Because standing at home is actually going to lead to more of the same.
You're right. Thank you very much. We wish you all the best in your campaign. Best of luck. Thank you very much for being with us today, and have a good day.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.